Hello there, Atheist Junior here, your friend and humble narrator, and this is the after show for uh, the Kent Hovind Dinosaur Standalone 2022 video, which was done by Apologia, me, Mark, Miss Parker, and several collaborators, McKinnon, lots of people. And I'm really happy to have Paul and Mark here on my channel, which is exciting. Mark's been on here before, but Apologia, this is, I think, the first time. Uh,
Oh, is it cool?
yeah. And
I like what you've done with the place.
thank you.
Yes, very
We
nice.
uh we did our video last year that was just pretty much just me and you working on it.
Yeah.
But this video it had such a bigger scope that I'm so glad that some of these other people were able to come in and assist on the research because watching this video, I saw a bunch of stuff that I even had no idea about. And I follow this stuff closely, but
Right.
I thought it was an incredible video, a lot of really shocking stuff in there. But it's some important work, and I was happy to see 1,000 live viewers watching it in the chat. It's incredible. So congratulations for that.
Well, thanks, everyone. And I think the most important thing, sadly, is that we're trying to put up a caution sign, right? We're trying to say this is not someone that, like, I think the video tried to lay it out as cool as we can, that we're not we're not gossiping, we're not whatever. It's like, this is someone, if you are a Christian and you are supporting Kent Hovind in any way, just please consider there's other young earth creationists out there who are not involved in all this other stuff that you can give your money to. I mean, this isn't about that debate. I am so grateful that almost everyone who helped me on this video is a Christian of some sort. That this was a lot of collaboration just coming together of like, this is a person who doesn't deserve our attention and money. So it's weird that we're excited about getting attention for that. Maybe that's a kind of paradox. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark. What are you going to say?
Okay. Yeah. Well,
none of us have slept, so we're a little punchy.
very true. And I wasn't even going to come on this show until both you guys guilt tripped me into by saying, like, it's not like we've slept either. I'm sitting there in bed. I'm like, I can't do this. And yeah, well, here I am. And yeah, Paul, I would definitely like to go off of what you're saying. Christians stop supporting him. I used to work for Kent. I was actually even a trustee on the Creation Science Evangelism Trust, the one that was originally set up by Glenn Stoll for the Pensacola Dinosaur Adventureland. And the purpose of that trust was to go after and sue the government. Well, at least the most recent. And I think you've covered some of that as well. But folks, some of you guys are contributing as little as a like on his YouTube channel, and that's too much. I went to the extreme. I left the state. But to be fair, I received death threats for some of the things that I've come out with, and I think it was a very wise decision for me to get out of town. And Cindy, I know you're out there watching and listening. I still, and I've told you so many times, you just got to leave. You got to get out of there. There's nothing there for you. There really isn't. There's so much more to this country, and you're from California, the beautiful state of California, and you've got family there. So that little PSA out of the way. One thing I wanted to say, AJ, to what you said, that the things in the video just kept surprising you and surprising you. If y'all were following in the chat, like every couple of minutes, I'd see a comment and somebody would just be blown away. I'm like, but wait, there's more. It gets worse. Yeah. And they're like, how does it get worse? How does it get worse? And I haven't even seen this. This was a live premiere. I haven't seen any of your video, Paul. And
no.
I knew what was coming. I knew what was coming because, well, I lived it. I was there. And, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. And like you said, this isn't gossip. This isn't anything like that. This is a warning. This is a stark warning to people who are supporting this man. He might not have that much of an impact on your life, but the support that you're giving him is impacting others in very harmful and negative ways, and you need to be cognizant of that at this point, especially.
Yeah. Okay, we have a super chat for $5 from Vandalia 1998. It says, I was a Christian for 25 years, and it wasn't until 3 years after I left church I even heard about him, so that shows how relevant he was in my circle.
Hmm.
And then this one from Thomas Glazer, it says, I think you did an amazing job. A lot of these things shock me, but glad to know it. I feel disgusted, terrified, and absolutely livid. And then this one from Robert just says, thanks to all. So thank you guys for the super chats. And I have my PayPal link pinned at the top too, if you use PayPal.
Yeah, AJ did, as he's done now the second year in a row, he carries this on his back. I kind of ping him in September. I'm like, yeah, next month we're going to do that video, right? So can you start doing all the work in advance for me? And AJ does so much prep work. I think we're a good team. Maybe you disagree, and you probably won't tell me on camera. You can disagree privately. You kind of carry the first month, and I kind of carry the second month together, and it kind of works out in its own weird way.
No, I definitely agree, because it does seem that way, that like, you know, I built the first video in this one. I took the time building a timeline of events, which can be kind of tricky, but it is helpful that, you know, we have Robert Beatty, who I use as a resource. I know he's a controversial guy, but his documentation of Kent as a timeline is very helpful. And then, of course, you have like channels like Cindy's and Mark that do this stuff, and even Brett Keane. Some of his videos were very important this year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so the fact that I don't want to take too much credit for this, but that, you know, I started making my videos like last year or 2 years ago about Kent, and I've just seen this big increase of channels that are kind of covering him, and it's so good to see more people documenting this stuff, because not documenting it and remembering it is how people get silenced, you know. But I do agree that, you know, I would work on the research, and then you know, I give you a ton of credit for the amount of animation work and all the other technical and editing stuff. I love the editing, especially on the first video. What I saw a lot of comments of people saying that they liked how, you know, like saying, oh, well, something couldn't possibly happen the next day, and then you cut me in saying, so the next day this thing happened, and then it keeps people really like that, and I thought that was funny.
Well, imagine living there for nearly 2 years. I mean, it wasn't... You guys cover a lot of the darker things that went on, and yes, I was there for a lot of that, but just the daily drama and infighting and just ridiculous discussions that would go on about flat Earth and this and that and aliens and Bigfoot. It's just people had some really strange opinions there at DAL. In fact, one girl paraded around the place literally half naked, blasting Eminem music, saying that he was the returned savior, and Kent baptized this girl.
Mm-hmm.
And
wow.
yeah, and that just goes to show that the whole thing is a facade. It's a stage. The only thing Kent is cared about are things that have either dollar signs or numbers. You know, he likes to pump his numbers, his baptisms. He's got this many baptisms. He's got 27,000 trillion science experiments, and his little rocks and grains of sand, and his little gravel pit there. And it's just, that's all he cares about. He cares about numbers, and he cares about dollar signs. And he'll put up this whole front to make it look like, oh, I don't care about money because look at the shoes I wear. They're Walmart Crocs. Who cares? Some of the wealthiest men in the world wear the most basic clothes because they're not vain. And I wouldn't call Kent a vain man in that regard, but he is a power-hungry, money-grubbing thief and a narcissist to boot. So there's also that.
Yeah, and I mean, Crocs are expensive shoes, for one thing. I know, maybe not Walmart ones.
And they are comfortable. They are comfortable. Like, I'll give them props on that. They're comfortable. I mean, I used to wear Crocs all the time until I've ruined them and never wanted to buy another pair because they were so expensive.
Yeah, but he points to his shoes, but he doesn't talk about, oh, look at all these side-by-sides I have that I
Cindy
drive
bought
to the ground. Yeah.
That Cindy bought. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, one thing I just thought was kind of funny is that Sandra was saying how, oh, the judge doesn't even like Kent. because of the last case, and I was thinking, like,
Right.
maybe that's because Kent publicly said that the judge had no ears.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's actually true. I think he has no ears, like physical ears, or there was like a birth defect or something, or an accident. I don't know. And I don't know the guy. I've never seen a picture of him, but I've heard that this particular judge, Judge Hyde, has to wear hearing aids and doesn't have actual ears. So as
Right.
true of a statement as it may have been, it was definitely not made as just a friendly observation. It was a definitely a slant at the judge's ability to, do his job and hear, quite literally hear a case.
I hear
When
the
I was-
recording that Kent played.
When I worked at
Yes.
Lucasfilm back when in California, when I was for George Lucas, one of the committees that I was put on was the committee to try and earn an Academy Award for Star Wars Episode 3. It was the last movie George thought he was going to make at the time. He's like, he really wanted an Academy Award, and so we're on this committee to try and help make that happen. But anyway, then George kept going around every time he was interviewed, telling everyone how much he hates everyone in Hollywood and how dumb they are and how stupid they are. But those are the people who vote for the Academy Awards, and that's how I always feel. I always just remember that whenever Kent is like throwing the judges and everyone under the bus. I'm like, dude, do you live in this tiny community? Do you really think that these judges aren't going to hear what you think of them? Like you just, I don't want him to help himself, but he could.
Yeah. So
What do the people around there think of Kent? What do the neighbors think?
Well, I in one of the details I had in the timeline was that Kent had somebody had asked a person in town. They tried to invite them to DAL for Thanksgiving, and they said no. I don't want to. That place is a cult. And Kent was very offended by this. He talked about it on the air, and I've heard. I think Pastor Charles had told me that he was talking to a gas station attendant when he was traveling there who warned him not to go because of that same reason. And so it seems like there's a lot of gossip among the townspeople about this place, that they don't like it. And I've also heard that the sheriff's department is not particularly fond of Kent or DAL either, because they get called out there a lot,
Yeah.
I will say credit to you, AJ. The first cut of this video was half an hour longer than what I made the final cut to be. There was a lot of details that just ultimately, it became clear as I put the piece together that like the Zaire story needed to be the crescendo. Like it just needed to be the heart of it, and we weren't getting there fast enough with a lot of the weird details, like the neighbors calling it a cult or ostensibly. So unfortunately, there was a lot of stuff that ended up on the cutting room floor, and then Mark and other people have been exposing tons of details that just as an outside observer, since I'm not a firsthand witness, didn't quite reach the threshold of, well, can I put this on my channel, without I believe the witnesses, but it is really just a one witness type thing. So I tried to keep everything in the video to either the primary witness or multiple witnesses. But this was tip of the iceberg, Mark, was it not? I mean, I hope I hit the high notes. But
You did a very, very good job of putting this together, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very well
but that's to say, there's weirder stories that didn't make the cut.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird stories. I don't think you touched too much on the drowning incident, and I kind of wanted to mention that.
Right. That was
playing
last
off-
year. We did it quite a
Right.
bit on last year's video, yeah. But
So-
for sure.
I've got an interesting, well, it's not really interesting, it's heartbreaking, but a story about an interaction with some locals. Kent would always have us take the flyers, the little, he called them gospel tracts, but it was just a flyer for his theme park. He would ask us to hand them out around town and be good ambassadors for Dinosaur Adventureland, put on a happy face and all that. Well, I'm at I believe it was the Marvins in Monroeville, which is like 20 minutes from Dinosaur Adventureland, and I'm out in the parking lot loading up lumber or what have you that I'd purchased for my cabin out there, and a lady comes and parks next to me, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna hand out one of these flyers while she's right next to me, and I'm trying to be a social guy and a good ambassador, and I hand her the flyer, and she looks at me in the face, and she said, "My husband's the one that drove that boy that drowned to the hospital," and that was just such a sobering experience for me to have that, not maliciously thrown right in my face or any maliciousness on her part at all. It was just like, wow, this is, the PR campaign has come and rested on my shoulders. This is bad. This is really bad. So the general feel in the community, yeah, the people that don't really know about it, that get caught off guard by Matt Powell farting in public videos, they're gonna laugh about it and blow it off like it's just a joke. But the people that know, like Johnny Andrews, former county commissioner for Gwinnett County, he knows what's going on. There's a lot of people around town that know what Kent's up to, that are in the inner circles of that community, that just, they want him gone. They don't want him in the community at all. And one of the problems with being in such a small community like that and having the kind of money that comes into a place like Dinosaur Adventureland, and it's not huge dollars, but we're talking $500,000 a year in donations, and he's always building, and the guy can't skirt sales taxes. He can't. You got to pay sales taxes when you go to the lumber store.
Right.
You got to pay taxes on hammers and nails and screws and whatnot. So in a way, that community is becoming codependent on his financial revenue that he brings in, the tax revenue that he brings in, because he does spend every penny that comes into that place. He does spend it on Dinosaur Adventureland, and he brings quite a bit of commerce into that community. And I don't know how much of a part that plays into the locals' reluctancy to do something about it in the courts, but I thought it was worth mentioning and bringing up in the light of everything that's been going on.
Fair enough.
Yeah, definitely.
You had me wondering what there was probably a segment of the population affected by Steve leaving, who he was spending a lot of money, I hear too. So, but maybe not on the same things.
Well, I think Steve was probably part of the income stream more than the expenditure stream, and I think
enough.
that's why he felt entitled to just take donations for himself. Maybe he felt slighted that he wasn't getting enough recognition, enough power, enough whatever Steve wanted. But I have very strong suspicions that Steve was producing BDSM porn, potentially with underage minors. I cannot confirm that. I do know that Sandra's daughter, Lydia, who at the time would have been 11, was said to be spending a lot of time alone with Steve in his cabin down by the lake. And, if that's not disturbing enough, I mean, you want to talk about the crescendo being Zaire. Yeah, well, Zaire's out of there. Zaire's never going back, but Lydia still lives there.
Yeah.
And so does, I forget the other, Isaiah, the other minor there. And I don't know about mentioning names and stuff, but they do. They have no problem mentioning their kids' names on YouTube, so I kind of feel like it's not a dox.
Like I felt I had to blur Zaire's photo, right? Like I just didn't even want. Kent has it still live on his channel, but
yeah.
Yeah, I will say one thing about, you said the crescendo with the editing. When I was watching the video, after all that stuff in the midsection, when I come back in and I start talking about how Kent was very rude during my debate, I'm thinking that kind of seems like not that big of a deal in comparison. Like it was, it was for me, but I was just kind of laughing about that. Like,
well, but so you and I bookended my own. I thought about that, AJ, and I didn't want to make you look bad. I bookended it with my own pettiness about like Kent talking about my voice all the time.
Well, hey, I've got a petty bone to pick. I got a petty bone to pick. My little stick figure. Why didn't I get more muscles? I mean, come on.
No, the bouncy stick figures all have the same build. So,
okay.
Next year, Mark, if you come on and you actually speak if you interview for the video next year, but here's hoping that there's not enough material for another one next year.
But I've got a very strong suspicion that the next year's video will be talking about his conviction and sentence, however long that may or may not be.
Oh, I hope so.
Or death.
And AJ,
exactly.
I didn't actually tell you
that's why I said
that
may or may not be, because the other alternative would be the man's not going to live very long.
No.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
I was just gonna say the last minute tack on was, of course, the now the date for the retrial being in December.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, yeah. See,
That
there's some
happened
last
between
minute
when you
stuff
and I
too.
recorded and when the final was,
That's
so I threw it in.
that date has been set. I don't think the specific day was set, but the way that Conecuh County handles their jury trials, they only do jury trials twice a year, so once every 6 months. And the appeal came in just after the deadline to get a jury trial for the last go round, so now
Mm.
it's in the winter docket, and the date I believe is set for, is it the 12th or the 19th? There's been so many dates, I start to get them confused.
Yeah, me too. I think the 12th of December was what it said.
That
But yeah,
sounds right. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, we were talking about just the editing a second ago. I do think it was a good idea the way you did it, because I think you need some light humor after that middle section. So
Mhm.
I thought it was really good how you edited it. I just thought that was kind of a funny detail that I had noticed. But
Right. Yeah. Um, Thinking back
Yeah.
to Steve, like another detail I cut was the fact that Steve named his business, his editing business, the CSE
Mm-hmm.
something or other, so that if checks came in for CSE, Creation Science Evangelism, that
Yep.
he could just slush cash them like that. I mean,
really,
Steve's gone now, so like that was like, okay, fine, whatever. But if you were supporting him and writing CSE on the check, like Kent tells you to do every single video, you might have well been writing a check to Steve Lynn for all you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say that that's smart, but that's kind of, I don't know. It's a little bit clever,
Yeah,
I will say.
his CSE corporation was CSE and IT Productions, and it was literally on the mailbox where at the house that he was renting from Cindy.
So, David, if you look at the description of the video, I link to Siobhan's full video. My sound editor, who put that together for me, well, he did it on his own volition. I didn't prompt him to do it, but he did an amazing job. And so that song, yeah, you can get the standalone version of that song on YouTube.
You have a sound editor?
Uh, so I
I'm
do.
I'm jealous.
Yeah.
I
So
am.
in my video process, what I figured out, so I went full time earlier this year, a few months ago, and I was trying to figure out, how to do more videos and do stuff, and I pinpointed the thing that I hate the most, and the thing I hate the most is sound editing,
Mm-hmm.
and that I'm not good at. So that felt like a good start for, well, if I'm gonna, try and pay a few dollars to somebody to help me out, that was the first thing. So I do,
Yeah.
and he's amazing, and yeah, it really helps my mental state for sure.
Yeah, and
But I added all my guests, so
we had some
AJ,
problems with audio too.
I'm sorry.
We had some problems with audio too. Like for some reason, the audio I recorded on my end from Audacity, I don't know why it didn't sound very good.
So it
So
was 8 megahertz only for some reason instead of 48 megahertz
oh, okay.
or whatever that measurement is. And real sound people are cringing now whatever I'm saying, but apparently it just was super low fidelity. So anyway, my sound editor rescued that. He figured out how to take the Zoom call, and because the Zoom always records at a slightly different speed than our natural
Mhm.
conversations do, so he had to fix that up. So thank you for that. That was appreciated.
But to answer this question, yes, Steve did get arrested for stealing a truck, not a car.
Mm.
That was in last year's video. But yes, it was a Hunter S. Thompson type of
He
state of
was
mind that
running
he was
from the
in.
FBI. I mean, come on, there were helicopters after him. FBI and helicopters and Men in Black, right?
Yes. According to Kent, the drugs he was taking made him think the cops were after him. So he
Mm-hmm.
stole a truck, and then the cops really were after him
Yeah,
because he.
exactly.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean that middle section, I really didn't. The whole thing about the bus driving thing, I hadn't heard that, but when I heard that, it made so much sense to me because I've heard Kent talk about this stuff before, where
Mm-hmm.
he would drive into the ghetto, and his story. I don't know if you've heard it, but his story about him supposedly meeting somebody who told him he was in the KKK, or Kent asked him that, and he said yes. Have you heard that story?
I've
I
not.
have not. No.
So Kent said he was driving his bus, or he was in that area, and he saw somebody whose car was stuck on the train tracks, and they were drunk, I guess, and so he helped the guy push his car off the tracks, and he said, "Oh, what are you doing in this neighborhood? This is a bad neighborhood." He says, "Oh, well, I drive a bus to pick up the black kids around here and take them to church and get them saved." And supposedly the guy says, "But they can't get saved. Black people don't have souls." And Ken asks him,
Wow.
"Are you in the KKK?" And he says, "Yeah." And
Yeah.
I'm like, "Okay, that happened."
Must have been a Mormon.
Yeah,
I couldn't help but think of, I don't know if you saw the new Netflix series on Dahmer, Jeffrey Dahmer,
I've heard about that.
but
Yeah.
where he specifically was targeting minority neighborhoods
Yep.
because he knew that they were less likely to report, less police patrols, fewer police patrols, like all those kind of things. And when I went through all these videos, I hadn't really paid attention to the bus story. I watched hundreds of hours of his stuff, but there's so much of him talking about this bus.
Yeah.
When you go back, and yeah, it's clearly like I don't think he was thinking criminal targeting, but I think it was the same thing. It's like preying on people who need him, right?
Yeah, yeah.
In that way, it was disturbing. So sorry to tie Hovind and Dahmer, but maybe that works.
You're
Yeah,
absolutely
and-
right, though.
I think there's a good connection there for sure. I don't think there was an aspect of race in Dahmer's case. I did watch the documentary, and I've always been kind of a crime enthusiast. I like the interrogations and the psychological side of things, but they do target underprivileged peoples because, well, they don't have as much of a leg to stand on in society to cry foul. People aren't going to listen as much, and predators realize that. It's a hard truth in society that we have to face. The lower classes, the underprivileged people, are underrepresented as well in courts and as well as politics. It's just the reality. But predators like Kent, predators like Dahmer, and no, Kent's probably not a cannibalistic serial killer, but he is a serial predator. Whether his victims be subjected to bad theology, bad eschatology, or just, flat out lies of the actual events that are going on around Kent Hovind and Dinosaur Adventureland, it's all based on predation. He's drawing people in, he's grooming the people that he wants around him. Hell, the guy was grooming my daughter. He was having her go in to his bedroom and give him massages, and I wouldn't have known about this. I would not have known about this if it weren't for my daughter offering to give me a massage when I was complaining about having a sore back. And I said, "Mackenzie, how in the world do you know how to give a massage? Where did you even learn about what a massage was?" And she's like, "Kent Hovind said I'm the best massager in the world." Dude, I don't know how much I can get away with saying this, but this is how I felt in the moment. It was real. I was very fortunate that I made the decision to move across the country, because if I had not, when I found this out, I was in a state of I didn't care about prison. That's where I was, because a nearly 70-year-old man had my daughter, without my consent, my permission, or my knowledge, in his bedroom, rubbing down his bare back. Totally inappropriate and out of line.
When I saw your interview with, I think it was Adam on that one, I couldn't believe you were holding it together. Because as a dad, I was like, I was ready to go smack somebody for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
you obviously had time to settle it.
What's kind of an interesting detail is that Kent's video yesterday, at the end, he was talking about how he has a massage table in his house, I think, and he said, like, "Oh yeah, we have some people here who are like licensed to do that or something," which I'm sure isn't true. But he said something. He said Matt is one of the people who gives him massages. He just said Matt. I was like, Matt Powell? And
Probably.
so this is the latest thing that
Matt
interested me.
actually has a perfect build for masseuse. He's got big basketball hands, and that's really good for getting into like the deep tissues, And he's a tall guy, so he's got some reach. He can really get around there with
Well,
the
he looks like
reach.
he looks like he has soft hands, got soft skin,
He's got a pretty mouth. Is that what you're saying?
Oh man.
So I cut out a whole section of the video, unfortunately, about just the whole thing where Kent declared himself a homeless shelter this last year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Mark, what is
okay.
that about, and why would that be important? Like,
okay, so I don't know how recent this filing, or if it's even still in effect, but actually, no, it was 2016 when he filed his Form 990. He filed, I forget, I think it was the NCCT classification for a homeless shelter. So he would have had to fall under the rules and regulations that guide homeless shelters. I mean, homeless shelters are a multi-billion-dollar industry in the United States. Sadly and unfortunately, they are. But to be classified as a homeless shelter, you have to follow certain stipulations. And not only does Kent not follow guidelines and rules for homeless shelters that are federally regulated, he's also violating the very, essence of the American freedom, the liberties that we enjoy, because I can demonstrate that he engages in labor trafficking, which is a form of slavery. It's slavery, and the penalty. This is no light matter. The penalty for these things is life imprisonment, up to and including the death penalty, even for labor trafficking. That's how serious these laws still are. Now, I seriously doubt anybody's going to be getting the death penalty for that. But if he would be convicted of the labor trafficking, and if I were a prosecuting attorney, I would certainly be bringing that case, because there's a very strong case for it, with a lot of different people that have gone through there, that have had to give up their homes, had to, be kicked out of a homeless shelter because they wouldn't work for the homeless shelter. That's
right.
That's breaking so many laws, so many regulations. If for nothing else, I think that Kent is guaranteed, if somebody would bring that charge, to be put in prison.
So Kent's not super good at filing paperwork. Like,
well,
he's not known for that.
Kent doesn't file paperwork. What Kent does is he hires these soft-sit gurus, self-proclaimed legal experts like Ernie Land and Brady Byram and Paul Hansen, who think that they know, all this maritime law and what do they call it, common law, stuff that predates current case law and current case precedent. And Supreme Court rulings, but they think they've got the magic ticket, because they're they don't fall under man's government. They're only under God's. But they have to completely throw Scripture out to even come to that conclusion, because Romans 13 says being subjected to your government.
Right.
It's insanity.
But is there financial incentive to being a homeless shelter? Like, why would they even want to be declared such? Like, is there government kickbacks or something?
Oh yeah. I'm sure there's grants. There's probably lots of tax benefits. And I think you're allowed to get away with letting people live there. They were having problems with people wanting to reside at Dinosaur Adventureland. It was all the time they were saying, you can't have mail sent here. You have to get a P.O. box. Nobody can live here. This isn't a residence. Even though it's obviously being constructed as a community, an intentional community, when we all know how those turn out, not very well. But everything that Kent and Ernie and all of these, you said you think Steve's gone. Maybe he is, maybe he's not. Maybe he's just doing what Ernie's doing right now and playing behind the scenes, because his websites are still up. He's still promoting this new extracts bullcrap, this live longer snake oil serum. It's still there. Like, if they were really parted ways, why are all these connections still valid?
Yeah. So a second ago, you were talking about the labor thing. Like Paul said, there are so many things that could have been included in this video, but I think one of the things that I think Kent wanted to happen but didn't ever actually happen was he was talking about, I think, trying to immigrate refugees from Vietnam to come stay at DAL.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
People who were. Do you remember the details of that? Mark?
Yes. So there was a group. I think they were from. I don't think they were from Vietnam. They were refugees who were residing or taking refuge in Vietnam, but they were looking for a place in the United States to set up a community for these refugees. And I don't know what network or connections that they went through to get to Kent Hovind or for Kent Hovind to get to them, but they had like an official entourage come out to interview and inspect and stay there for a few days. And I don't think anything ever came of it, but Kent was super excited about it because, this is, a whole batch of underprivileged, refugees. And we've already talked about what predators do with underprivileged. They target them and groom them. And that would have been, Kent would have been a kid in a candy store with all this fresh meat. So.
Yeah, I think you're asking a second ago, Paul, about, is there a financial benefit to homeless shelters? I think with Kent, like, obviously he cares about the financial aspect, but I think almost maybe just as much, maybe not just as much, but he really likes to have control over people. That's one thing he really seems to care about. Like, you could tell how irritated he was when people were trying to tell him not to have Chris Jones come on the property, and how stubborn he was. And Cindy was right when she said that, he wants to be King Kent, and, he hates being called a cult, but it's like, well, don't you treat DAL as like it's a dictatorship though. And you act like you have a board, but it's so obvious that the buck stops with Kent, literally,
Mm-hmm.
He is always going to make the final decisions.
Yeah, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Kent Hovind is the law.
Yeah.
So entirely randomly, I did want to close my loop on Jeffrey Dahmer. Kent Hovind thinks that he converted Jeffrey Dahmer to Christianity.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
Yes, he does. Kent Hovind had nothing to do with that. Jeffrey Dahmer never saw a single Kent Hovind video, not one. I did a whole post about that on my Facebook. It's I've done quite a few posts about Kent Hovind. But yeah, he had nothing to do with Dahmer's conversion. Dahmer, his father didn't even have much to do with it. It was a preacher, I think it was Roy Ratcliffe was his name. And he started bringing materials from, I believe it was Answers in Genesis.
Oh, okay.
And that was where some of the creation stuff, in the interview, Dahmer makes reference to creation science, and Kent just extrapolated that to mean him, Kent Hovind,
right?
Creation science, Hovind, AJ, AJ, do it.
Creation science, Hovind, he saw some creation videos. I'm just gonna assume that was mine.
If he really did convert Dahmer, and that would have been a huge deal. Like, that would have been major. Dahmer was a infamous serial killer that everybody in the country knew about. Well, if Kent was responsible for converting Jeffrey Dahmer, why didn't he just name his theme park Dinosaur Adventureland?
Ouch.
Have you been sitting on that one? Or?
No, I have not. It just came to me. I haven't slept, AJ, okay?
I was going to say,
Forgive
reminder,
me.
none of us have slept. No one on the panel has had it yet.
So the rambling and rants is a lack of caffeine. It has nothing to do with not sleeping. You guys are sipping coffee. This is not fair.
AJ, at one point, I know you were tempted to do your impression on my video. I know at one point you stopped yourself during our recording from doing it. So
yeah, sometimes I slip
tonally,
into it.
Given where it ended up tonally, I'm glad we didn't go with the impression.
Yeah, the last year's video, I think, had a lot more sort of funny content in it, but this one, it was, a little bit, I think, which is a good thing towards the end, but that's what kind of sucks about this, is that it really sucks all the fun out of talking about this stuff. Like, which is what I talked about before, is that, when I first started doing videos about Kent, I thought, and this is a thing that I think maybe is intentional from Kent, is, he just seems like a very goofy person. Like, like I obviously disagree with his claims, and, there's a lot of videos that kind of poke fun at Kent, and it's like, I enjoyed watching those videos, especially like with R and Raw, But then, it gets so much darker, and I feel like Kent does the clothes he wears and the ridiculous facial expressions and the way he talks and his voice, and people see that and they underestimate him. They think that he's stupid. They think he's not capable of doing. Uh, they think he's less capable of harm than he is. And I don't know if that's intentional from Kent or if that's he just likes these shirts or whatever. But I think it's a strategy to kind of make people not suspect him, which also the whole preacher thing. I've always thought is a cover for what his real aspects were, because it always seemed to me like his real ministry was about the tax protesting. That it always seemed like that's what he really wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
So
Well, Kent's not even a good creationist. He's his creation material. A lot of it is just old information that's already been answered. And I am a young Earth creationist, and I'm saying this. I think that he's a terrible creationist. But not only that, but even outside of what he's somewhat able to capture an audience, his creation stuff, he's about one of the worst theologians I've ever come across. It's just disgusting how bad his doctrines are. And Paul, you being a former were you a pastor? Were you?
I was involved with youth ministry and music ministry, but I as many of us do, I earned my dollars elsewhere because
right.
that's the good Mennonite way to do it, right?
As you should do, right? Yeah. Oh, you're a Mennonite, so yeah.
Yeah.
So you would have a pretty good understanding of what sound biblical doctrine should be,
Well, yeah, and I mean, are you a King James onlyist, like for example?
No.
So, for example, like just even that, right, bristled me as a believer because it's like, well, why wouldn't you go back? Like, I don't care if you care about the translations, but the King James is based on like not great manuscripts. It was just the ones that King James happened to own, and there were so many better ones now. Like, so that he hangs his hat on that just seems so anti-intellectual and anti-historical. Like, even if you want to treat the Bible as revere it as scripture, go back to the oldest manuscript you can. Like, that just seems a no-brainer. Like, that was just a red flag for me.
Well, I think I think there's a whole entire separate argument to be made for the manuscript support, but if you're going to be a King James onlyist, your claim is that it was the first and best English translation. Well, what about the Geneva Bible? What about the Pilgrim's Bible? What about all these other English Bibles that predate the King James? What about the King James 1611 version that doesn't even have the letter J in it? The letter J wasn't even invented. Right. Like, where do you draw the line? Which is the original and true best English translation? It doesn't exist. They're all good translations. You're going to find the gospel in each and every translation of the Bible, except maybe, the Message or even one of those little sleazy translations.
So he hangs his hat on these,
it's not a hill worth dying on, right?
Yeah, he, and his undying support of like that Ron Wyatt really found the Ark of the Covenant underneath the cross, and Jesus's DNA is on it. Like, that's just such a weird thing.
I watched that video of him going in and out of that, with Ron Wyatt going in and out of that tunnel. I never saw it. I don't understand what he found. What did he find? I didn't see anything.
Well, Ron Wyatt claims that he was in Israel, and that his arm shot up and pointed at a big, like, pile of garbage or something. And I think he claimed that he found the site where, like, Jesus was crucified and his blood ran down through cracks in the ground and landed on the mercy seat. And I think he also claimed that he found the Ark of the Covenant too, but he didn't want to touch it because the last guy who touched it was, I forget his name, but the guy who tripped.
Indiana Jones.
That was it.
Yeah.
He was in the Bible.
Right, totally.
But he also had the blood tested and it had too many chromosomes. It's like, well, that's actually a disease. Like, that's not.
The claim was that it only had 23 chromosomes, but that goes against what Scripture says, because the Bible says that Jesus was fully man and fully God. So if to be fully man, he would have had to have his 20 or how many is it? 23, 30, 40 whatever. How
We
many?
should have. It's 46.
I might have.
think
I might
chat's gonna-
have.
the chat's gonna correct us. I'm pretty sure it's 46.
I might have an extra one or two. I don't know.
Yeah.
I definitely am not awake enough to have this intellectual
But
conversation.
having extra or too few is not good for Jesus'
Right.
case, right? It's
Right.
just not.
No, you want your 46, and you want to be good to go with that. Anything beyond that is deviant from what would be considered standard genetics.
So I think maybe for all of our mental health, maybe we should give some final thoughts, and we can wrap this up.
Sure.
So
I thought you guys were talking about going 2 hours. It's only been 45 minutes. Come on.
No.
No, we're good.
1 hour
No.
was our
All right.
awake time.
yeah, we said 1 hour ish.
Yeah.
Hey, y'all had to beg me to get here, so.
we did.
So I think I really enjoyed it. Obviously, the content of the video got pretty dark, but I think it's important to talk about this stuff. And for me, it was really like, I was watching it for the first time. I do appreciate that Paul, actually shared an edit of the video with me, which you had not done with anybody else before.
That's a
So
first.
I felt quite honored, and I was able to give some notes on that, which was good. So I do think we make a good team. I don't know if I ever answered that, but I think we make a great team, and I look forward to doing collabs in the future. So I'm just happy to be working with you, and I say big thank you to everybody else that contributed, Mark and everybody else who added stuff, because me and Paul definitely couldn't have done this just by ourselves this time. So we really needed the help. So thank you guys, and thank you to the people who watched it.
Absolutely.
And thanks for having me here too. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And if y'all don't mind, I'd like to plug my channel real quick. I'm not
Sure,
looking to be monetized or anything like that, but I do have a message I want to get out concerning Kent Hovind. A lot of the video sourced you'll find come from my channel, and I'm not trying to get who cares? It's a YouTube channel. I've got only 300 subscribers. That's not what I'm about. But I want people to see the message, and I was there. I was a trustee. And I've seen these things firsthand, and I'm doing the best job I can to report on what I've seen. So check it out. Get educated on Hovind. Don't contribute to Hovind. Don't donate. Don't even watch his videos. I mean, if you do watch a Hovind video, make sure it's on somebody else's channel so that they can get the credit, and don't give him the views. He doesn't deserve the views.
Yeah, I watch it so you don't have to, basically.
Yeah, there you go. AJ will do all the grunge work for you. I don't even watch Hovind videos anymore. I can't stomach it anymore. The only time I ever watch anything Hovind related is if somebody's pointed something out or asked me a question about something he said that I'm familiar with. Beyond that, man, I've got other things to do. I just put out a video on eschatology. Kind of a bad boy in that camp, in the Christian eschatology camp. A lot of people don't like my views, but I feel like they're the most biblical. I am Christian, so I know a lot of your viewers are atheists. You want a different perspective on a Christian's belief. Check out the channel. You might get some out of it. But anyway, I appreciate you guys having me here. I really do.
And thanks so much, Mark, for your diligent work and for your help on all this stuff.
Yeah, I'll add the link to your channel to the description. And Paul, did you have anything you wanted to say before we sort of sign off?
I guess I just wanted to say thank you so much, AJ, for all your work and for the. I just love your content, and I wanted to say this is weirdly like I'm trying to say this in a non-content thing. You've grown as a YouTuber so much since we started working together, and it just makes me excited. And you give me good ideas, and like it's just you're doing a great job with this channel, and I'm excited. If anything good comes out of this, I'm excited that more people from my channel will discover yours and the good work you're doing here. So I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And
well,
I want to thank you, AJ, also specifically. You were the first person to call me a YouTuber, which kind of gave me motivation to actually make YouTube videos about the stuff that I knew instead of just doing interviews. So thanks for that motivation. I hate that the topics we have to cover are so disgusting, but people need to know. And thanks for shedding light on it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm always encouraging, people to start a channel if you want to. Then if you do start a channel, if you are making videos, then take it seriously, you know, because my experience, you never know how quickly it could take off, you know. And
Mhm.
Paul, I will say, he took a chance on me when I had like 700 subs, I think, and you know, it it tripled after the video came out, and then there's just been a ton of growth since then. So that was a big reason for that growth. So, you know, I'll say thank you right back. But yeah,
And if you're, it doesn't matter if you're like, if you're making a YouTube video and you get discouraged that, oh, there's only like 100 people watched it. Well, if you got 100 people together in a room, that's more than Kent Hovind ever has in a room. Like
Yeah.
that's absolutely a valuable thing to do. So yeah, don't worry
Yeah.
about audience size.
I've got more subscribers than people I graduated high school with, and I know that's probably not saying much for you guys, but you know, 300 subscribers, like when you really think about it, when you're not even trying to be a YouTube personality, it's pretty significant, and it's just because people want the truth. People want to see what this Hovind guy's been up to, and I really appreciate the views, and like I said, I'm not trying to grow my channel to be monetized or anything. I've got other channels for that, but yeah, check it out. Share the videos if you feel like you need to, and make your own videos. Contribute. You know, you can use anything I put out for sure. So
yep,
the more
yep,
content, I think, the more pressure we put on Kent. You know, it's for the good. It's for the better.
yeah, I totally agree. You know, if you have a voice, you should use it. But thank you guys for watching, and you know, we're just gonna see you guys in the next video, and we'll say thank you so much for watching.
All right.